Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. So this is the second part of the video to measure the type of signal that trigger FieldFox for measurements. In the first part of the video, we measure the signals that's coming out from the FieldFox when it's trying to trigger another FieldFox for measurements. So instead of trying to decipher what is going on, so I'm doing another approach where I just send out a type of signal that I can control from a waveform generator, as you can see on the screen right now, and send out a pulse type of signal to enable that trigger to start the measurements. So what you can see, I have a waveform generator and a FieldFox here, and also a oscilloscope just to see how it looks like on the time domain. I'm going to focus on this right now. So before that, let's reset the spectrum analyzer in the FieldFox. So let's go to preset, mode preset. So make sure that we are in spectrum analyzer mode because this is the easiest way to see whether the trigger signal works or not. So I would just reduce down the span from the middle because we don't really care about which frequency right now as long as it's able to run. The first thing I want to show you is that if we turn on the trigger signal to external, it won't work because it says that in step sweep, the trigger doesn't work. So I'm going to show you here right now. So let's go to sweep, trigger setting. So trigger type, let's set it to external. So as you can see, trigger type has no effect while in step sweep mode. Before that, let's look at how the trigger signal is set up on the FieldFox. So this is the BNC cable that's connected to the top of the FieldFox, which says it's a trigger in. So as you can see, the cable is connected together via T-junctions on the scopes, which connects to the waveform generator. Alright, let's go back to the setting. So it mentioned that the step will not work with the external trigger. So how we're going to change that is go to bandwidth, advanced, and sweep type. Currently we set it to auto. For this type of span, we go with sweep step. So we want to make sure that it's not in sweep step. So you go to FFT and you see that it's waiting for the trigger signal. So in theory, if the trigger signal works, this wait sign will disappear and you'll start seeing that the trace line will be updated. So let's try the first thing. Let's set the waveform generator to a DC trigger of 5 volts. Let's go to waveform. Oops. Let's go to setup for channel 1, waveform, go to more, and DC. Let me try to focus this a bit better so that you can see. Okay, because of the lighting, can't really see that. So what you're seeing over here is the setup for the offset. So the offset, we can set it to 1.8 volt. And before we send into the FieldFox, okay, I will just refocus this. And this is the connections to the FieldFox. Before we set it there, we want to make sure that our voltage is correct. I'll disconnect this before it breaks anything on the FieldFox. I'll turn on the waveform generator right now, and you can see that it's on top of here. And let's zoom it down a bit. So it seems like it's quite high. And let's do this. Let's go to X here. So it's 35 volts, which doesn't make sense because we are setting the voltage to 1.8 and it doesn't make sense for that. So what I'm going to do is we go to channel 1, yep, and we set the over here. Click that, we change the probe. Currently it's 1 to 1, sorry, 10 to 1, so let's set it to 1 to 1. And our voltage will be about 3.6 because we set the offset of the waveform generator to 1.8, so peak to peak It's about 3.6. So it seems like it's all right now. Then I'll connect back here. I'll turn that off, the waveform generator, and connect this to the FieldFox, and I'll turn it on. So let's focus on this part. So let's focus on the FieldFox right now. If I turn it on, you see that the wait sign will disappear. See that? It triggers, but it doesn't update the trace. So what happens is that if I keep turning on and off of that waveform generator, it will update portion by portion. So you can see that it updates bits by bit. This is how FieldFox will want the trigger line to be, a continuous type of pulse on and off condition, so that it can sweep through the whole trace. So what we're going to do right now, let's focus back on the waveform generator. So instead of using a DC type of trigger, I'm going to use a pulse and burst type signal. So what I'm going to do is I'll change back my waveform to pulse, and I'm going to change it to burst. Let's turn on the burst. So what burst does is, as you can see on the screen here right now, so burst would just come out with a type of continuous pulse, depending on how many cycles you want it to be. Then it will just stop, and then it will burst again. So the burst period is the one that you're going to set the durations between the burst. So these are the two things we want to set. Let's start with 100, and then for burst period is set to 1 second. So the setting is over here. You can't really see here, but if you have that waveform generator, you should be able to see that. Let's set to 100 cycle. I'm going to change the number cycle later, and then going to see how it affects the reading. So for the burst period, I'm going to change it to 1 second. And of course we want to change the offset back to 0, because it starts from 0 for pulse. Let's change the parameter. Offset to 0, and amplitude I want to set it to 1.8. Okay, I don't really care about the frequency right now. I found that 1 kHz just work. So again, I'm going to disconnect that signal line to the FieldFox on the scope, and let's focus on the scope right now. So I'm going to turn that on, right, and then you can see that there's some activities going on. Let's zoom out. So you can see that there's a burst there. Burst 100 cycle of pulses, and then it's just off again. If we turn it out, zoom out again, you can see that it keeps repeating itself in such a way. And we can actually stop it, and then we can do a quick measurements between the two. And let's see, we start the X over here. So this is the first cycle. So it's close to, as you can see, the delta, it's about 1 second for X part. And let's do the Y. Let's start from 0, roughly there. Okay, it's supposed to be 0, but not sure why. But anyway, we should be able to get the delta. Y1 is over here at the top. So you can see the Y is about 3.6, which is good enough to trigger the TTL. So when you change the burst period on the waveform generator, the durations between the bursts will be extended or lesser depending on how long you want the period to be. So if we zoom in right now, you can see that it's about 1 kHz pulse signal. And of course you can set durations, the pulse width, duty cycle, things like that. But I found that this is good enough to trigger FieldFox. So I'm going to prove that to you. I'm going to let scope continuously run, and I'm going to turn it off for now, and I'm going to connect the signal line to the FieldFox. Okay, so I'm going to reset this guy, and how do I do it is, let's go back to sweep, trigger, external free run and go back to external. So you can see that the wait is still waiting for trigger, and then you're going to see that it's going to update over here. Okay, let's start first. I'm going to show you the changes on the waveform generator that will affect how the update of the trace on the FieldFox later. So I just turn on, you can see that the pulse, okay, just update up to here, and then go all the way there. Okay. So it's not one cycle sweep, because probably the sweep time versus the number of pulses is not good enough. So what I'm going to do, let's focus back on the waveform generator. I'm going to change the number of cycle to 200, and then you're going to see that the whole trace will be updated every time it go through that pulse burst. Let's press burst and number of cycle, let's change it to 200. So you can see that it's good enough to trigger the trace, and it's going to update the whole trace at every burst. Okay, you can also lessen it down so that you can see the effect. So I'm going to change it to 50. So you're going to see it chunks by chunks. So if you want to update the trace, one trace at one go, so I would suggest to have a cycle bigger, 200 maybe, and you can actually lessen down the pulse period to speed up the measurements. So let's say we set it to 0.1 seconds, 100 milliseconds. You can see that it's faster right now. And also, that's the lowest that you can go, 0.2. So 0.4, 0.2, yeah, it's the lowest. So the higher it goes, the slower it becomes. So 1.2, maybe lesser. Yeah, I'm not sure why it doesn't update on that part. But anyway, let's say we 0.5 seconds. You can see that it still update. 0.2 was the fastest that we can go. I hope this helped. If you need to trigger FieldFox, this is a type of signal that you have to send out, a bursty type of pulse signal. As explained in the video, the effect to it, and hope this helped. Thanks for watching.